Had to admit that I was unhappy, that I was lost, that I was drained, I was emotionally exhausted. And, with that honesty, it gave me clarity. And from there, I cultivated that strength. Let me tell you, rebuilding and just change in general requires honesty for you to take the next step that you need to make things happen. Okay. So your 20s can be the most confusing season of your life. One minute you're motivated, you're hopeful, you are ready to go, and the next you feel lost, you're emotionally drained, you're mentally checked out, you don't want to do anything anymore, okay? And honestly, this is where I found myself, okay? And I've been in this road for the longest time. It feels like forever. This season of my life, and in this season of my life, it's not about having everything figured out, but it's more about being intentionally rebuilding my life, as I learn and I relearn a lot of things. And that is what I'm going to discuss in this video. Okay. Your 20s is the most confusing season of your life. One minute you feel very hopeful, very motivated, you're ready to go, and the next you feel lost and mentally exhausted, emotionally drained, and nothing makes sense anymore. And honestly, I found myself in this space of mind. And during this time, in this season of my life, I have decided to be less about having everything figured out, but more of working on myself from the inside out. Okay. A lot of people think that rebuilding your life has to be very dramatic, like overnight, quit everything overnight, move cities, change your appearance, do this, do that. But for me, it has been quite much quieter than that. It has been more about waking up every day and just choosing myself and prioritizing myself and the things that align with where I am, you know, choosing discipline, choosing healing, and just showing up fully, even if it's not at 100%, but showing up even when I don't feel like it. Okay. The first step I had to take in my rebuilding myself journey was to accept that I was not okay. Okay. Now, for the longest time, I did not accept that I was not okay. I acted like I was fine. Okay. I stayed distracted. I stayed busy. I stayed around things that emotionally drained me, that things that were just a distraction. Okay. But eventually, everything catches up to you. It really gets to you. And one of the hardest part of your rebuilding journey is admitting that something needs to change. It's so hard because we are creatures of habit. We are so once we get used to something, we want it to remain exactly as it is because it's predictable. But accepting that something has to change means that you actually have to take that step and make the change happen. And change is uncomfortable. And I had to admit that I was unhappy, that I was lost, that I was drained, I was emotionally exhausted. And, with that honesty, it gave me clarity. And from there, I cultivated that strength. Let me tell you, rebuilding and just change in general requires honesty for you to take the next step that you need to make things happen. Okay. Now, the next thing I had to let go of the old version of me, and that is totally just teaching the identity that I thought I was. Okay. Rebuilding required me to let go of how I perceived myself, the versions of myself that no longer aligned with the person I wanted to be. Old habits, old mindsets, old friendships, people pleasing, procrastination, lack of discipline, comfort, a lot of comfort zone, a lot of things had to go. Okay. And honestly, some things felt familiar. And just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. Honestly, most of the times, those familiar things are incredibly unhealthy. But growth will always require you to release that which is not working for you, and it's uncomfortable. and you have to see through that discomfort, right? You cannot be a new version of yourself while clinging tightly to things that no longer serve you or things that will not take you to the person that you need to become. Okay. So the next thing is starting small instead of waiting for motivation. Now, one thing I have come to realize is that motivation is incredibly unreliable. Some days you feel inspired, want to do everything. Other days you just can't even get off the bed. You don't want to do anything. Motivation totally relies upon your moods. Other than discipline, discipline is more structural. You do it whether you feel like it or not. But moods, yeah, motivation it just depends on your moods totally, and it's completely unreliable because mood shifts every now and then. Okay, so instead of waiting to feel motivated, I started focusing on consistency, being consistent on small habits, small routines, keeping small promises that I make to myself, like getting up earlier, praying more intentionally, moving my body, being mindful of what I consume online, mentally, and even emotionally, the things that I let to get to me, And slowly, these small things started changing me, all right? And so, to my next point, which is I focused more on rebuilding mentally and emotionally. Okay, I had to realize that rebuilding is not just physical; it's mental too. Okay, and you can change your routine, you can change your appearance, you can change your environment. But if you don't change your mindset, you'll keep repeating the same old cycles again and again without progress. And you start thinking that things are not working out for you, but really you haven't done the work up here. So I started paying more attention to how I spoke to myself and what I consumed. I stopped feeding myself constant negativity, watching the news and gossip blogs. I had to unfollow all those things. I stopped romanticizing struggle and just became more intentional about my peace and discipline and growth. And honestly, it's been very effective. Okay. Proceeding to my next point, which I think is very vital in this journey, is rebuilding spiritually. Now, one of the biggest parts of this journey was rebuilding spiritually. Okay, there were moments where I felt very disconnected from God. I was tired. I didn't think like that man up there cared about me. But I've learned like healing isn't just about fixing your outer life, but it's also about connecting with your inner self, with your inner faith. And honestly, some of those hardest seasons really brought me closer to God and than even comfort ever did, than any kind of distraction ever did. It was hard, but in those tough seasons where it was just me and God is when I knew who I really was. You get to learn things about yourself and about God that no comfort, no distraction, no human being can teach you. Those you learn from those seasons, okay? The next point, which I am still learning to, is giving myself grace, okay? I think one of the biggest lessons I am learning is that rebuilding takes time. Sometimes we pressure ourselves too much. We want to glow up fast. We want to succeed fast. We want to run this race in a day and get there immediately. But growth is not linear. Some days you get it. Some days you just feel strong, you're good, your mental is okay. And some days it just feels like you're starting over. It feels like, okay, we are back at this valley. We have to lift ourselves back up, and that is how just life is. It's not linear. You're not going to be motivated every day. You're not going to be strong every day. You're not even going to glow up every day. You're not going to succeed at everything every time. Because that is what life is. It's not just that linear. Like things are just like that. It's up and down. It's too nuanced. You can't be too literal about life. Things don't work like that. Sometimes they do work out, sometimes it doesn't work out. But all in all, we keep faith, okay? And that doesn't mean you are failing if you find yourself in a valley or at a lower place where you thought you know, you had already succeeded at. It just means you're a human, and It's an experience. All of us were going through this thing, okay? If you're currently rebuilding your life in your 20s, okay, and you're in this journey, I just want you to know that you are not behind. You are not behind, and you're not failing because your life or your journey looks different from what you perceive others' journeys look like. Okay, you do not have to have everything figured out. Sometimes your 20s are less about they're less about arriving and more about becoming. Okay, becoming stronger, becoming wiser, becoming softer. Just becoming who you truly are and aligning yourself to your truest version. It's more about that than even arriving, because I don't think we will ever arrive in this lifetime. It's a constant job of working towards our best selves. Okay, so if you are rebuilding in this season, comment rebuilding down below so that we know that we are not alone in this. Okay, and if this video resonated with you, kindly subscribe, like, comment. Support your girl, and if someone needs this encouragement, they get to see it. Okay, let's push this channel. Okay, I need it to grow. Okay, I need a class of 50 people. I just need 50 subs. Okay, see you on the next one.